So what did I learn after hosting over 975 live webinars? I'm going to tell you right now on this episode of the Unlock Success Podcast.
This is the Unlock Success Podcast. We're helping entrepreneurs around the world dive deep into the keys you need to shatter excuses, believe in yourself, and help you achieve your highest goals. Here's your host, 8-figure entrepreneur and the living legend of internet marketing, Anthony Morrison.
Hey, what's up? Anthony Morrison here, and welcome to another episode of the Unlock Success Podcast, where my goal is to help you unlock success, not just in business, but also in life. We're going to dive into the things that make us tick as entrepreneurs and the mindset shifts that we can have that can truly unlock greatness and so much more success in everything that we do. I want to thank you for joining me here on this episode. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, then I would really appreciate it if you give us a rating at the end of the show. And of course, if you are watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to smash the like button, leave us some comments. We're always interested in hearing your feedback and even topic suggestions here for the podcast. Now, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about what I learned from hosting 975 live webinars, right? Webinars, for those of you that maybe don't do these in your business, just live presentations, right? So it's kind of the digital way of doing a live event or a live seminar, you know? And I started doing webinars, gosh, it's probably been 7-8 years now that I've been doing these. And I tell you, I learn something new every year, but I think the biggest thing that I learned is that consistency matters. So I have a webinar that I run every Thursday night. It's called the Success Connection. I'm live every Thursday night, and that webinar has 1,000 people waiting 2 hours before we even start most every Thursday night, because you can only get 1,000 people into the room. The room maxes out, and people they love it. You know, they want to be a part of it. And it's because I've consistently done it over the years. I've never missed a Success Connection. Every single time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday nights, I'm there. And when you create that consistency, what happens is you create habits. You create a habit in your user base, right? And if you think about it, habits are hard to break, right? If your habit is, smoking cigarettes, if it's drinking alcohol, if you have these specific things you do every morning, you wake up and you drink this exact same thing and you eat this exact same thing for breakfast, right? It's a habit, right? They tell you have to do something X amount of times for it to be a habit, but you have to not do it like X amount of times 10 for you to break that habit, right? When we create habits or help people create a habit to be at a webinar, it becomes part of their daily life. I mean, it just becomes part of the fabric of who they are and what their life is like. The biggest issue with webinars is show up rates, right? I have a lot of friends in the industry. I know a lot of people. We own Webinar Fuel, so we see the show up rates. And they're, a lot of times when people do live webinars, they're lucky if they get 20% of the people that register to show up. Where I have 1,000 waiting 2 hours to get on. And how does that happen? It's through consistency. A lot of times as digital course creators or service providers, coaches, consultants, we feel like we are doing the end users a favor to show up, right? But the reality is that's not true. They're actually doing us a favor. They could be anywhere in the world doing anything else in the world except listening to us, right? We're there because it's our job. They are there because they choose to be. And I think the minute that you have that mindset shift and you start realizing, wait a minute, hold up, I'm actually lucky that these people show up. You start approaching your webinars a little differently. For instance, I'll give you an example. And this is something that I think is very important. If you do a weekly series, which is, again, what we do, having a planned agenda, in college they call it a syllabus, right? So when you show up for the first day of class, they give you a syllabus and they show you kind of, this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to cover. this is how life's going to go for the next, however long, right? If you're in college. You have this plan that you see where you're starting, but you also see what the end goal is. And it's like at any point along the way, you can see yourself progressing towards this goal. And as humans, we're goal-oriented. That's just what we do. We like to achieve and meet goals, right? Well, when you just show up to do a webinar and it's just all over the place, and every week it's kind of the same story. Everybody gets together and you teach one certain thing, but then next week you teach a different thing, and the next week you teach a different thing, and nothing builds off of anything. It's just all randomized and all over the place. People can't see that end result or that end goal, right? They can't see themselves tracking closer to that. And so what happens is they fall off the wagon. They quit showing up. But if you are doing a weekly webinar series and you're giving people a syllabus, okay, where they can see, here's where we're at today, and here's where we plan to be in 3 weeks, and here's where we plan to be in 6 weeks, right? Now all of a sudden, I can see myself tracking along this progress line. I can look back at where I was and easily see the stuff I've learned and how what I've learned has helped me to be where I'm at today, and how that's going to help me to get where I want to be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's this logical linear progression, right? That I'm now allowing my attendees to see. This is massively important if you want to increase your show rates and if you want to increase your engagement rates, meaning people that actually do the stuff that you're teaching while you're on the webinar. Now, there's a caveat to this, okay? And the caveat is that while humans are goal-oriented, we're also very, we always are looking for instantaneous gratification. Meaning, if you say, Anthony, I'm about to show you a 365-day plan to making $500 a month online. I'm going to say, listen, that's a year. I don't want to wait a year for anything, let alone wait a year to make $500 a month online. And if I said to you, but listen, or I'm saying to myself, Anthony, I guarantee you at the end of this year, you will be able to now make $500 a month online. Still, I would say, but I have to wait a year. I'd rather go try 1,000 other products that don't guarantee me that I'm going to make $500 online, because I feel like I'm going to hit something between now and then, right? It's like the gamble, right? I'm going to hit something to help me before a year's up. We like instantaneous gratification. Even if there's a guaranteed success at the end of that rainbow and it's a year away, we would rather risk it to hopefully get that instantaneous thing now, right? That gratification today. So since people thrive off of this, you have to keep your syllabus and your goal schedule short. What I found is about 6 to 8 weeks is the maximum length. So what happens is let's just say it's week 1 of the year. I set up a syllabus. I outline 6 to 8 weeks. And I basically show people, this is what we're doing over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And in 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to be able to launch this thing, right? Now, if they're 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in, they see themselves getting closer to the end, closer to the goal. Now, after that 8 weeks, I just set up another one. All of a sudden, you're at week 1 of maybe a 6-week or a 7-week new project, right? New thing that we're building, new thing that we're launching. I'm constantly refreshing the goal and the syllabus. So I keep a syllabus so that I have structure, so that people can see the structure. But I also make the syllabus short, right? So that people can get that quicker gratification, which is what they want. Right? And then I maintain consistency. Every single week, I'm in the same place at the same time. If you implement these things in your business and you're doing webinars, you're going to get a higher show-up rate. You're going to get a higher success rate out of your students. You're going to get a higher engagement rate. And ultimately, all of that means you're going to get more purchases. Your students are going to buy more stuff from you, and they're going to do it simply because you've ingrained yourself as a part of their life, a part of their day. Like I said, part of the fabric that makes them them, right? And you've done that through consistency and through goal setting. Consistency, goal setting. Consistency, goal setting. This is the number one way to win with webinars after hosting a ton of them. This is the thing that I think you should focus on most if you want to take your webinar business or your business at all that maybe isn't doing webinars and you want to absolutely crush it with webinars. You've got to create the consistency. You've got to create the agenda, and you've got to let people reach their goals in a short amount of time so that they stay focused, right? And the more they focus on you, the more they show up, the more they show up, the more you teach them, the more you teach them, the more rapport you build. Obviously, the more rapport you build, the more they're going to want to invest in you, your knowledge, your education, your products, and your resources. Hopefully, this has helped you. If you are in the live webinar business, this should be some great tips that are going to help you take your business to the next level. As always, if you are watching on YouTube, please leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about this. If you are listening on one of your favorite podcast apps, please give me a rating for this episode. And of course, if you enjoyed it, make sure to join me next week with another episode of the Unlock Success Podcast.